What did the pandemic ruin more than we realize? Before we start with the first story, please hit subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Story 1. Businesses, cleanliness and hours. Go to some local box store like Target. Walk around and see just how trashy it looks now. Clothes on the floor because they don't have enough staff to pick up the mess. Half-empty shelves. It's like they're in a perpetual state of closing down. Also, lots of late-night stores and restaurants cut hours and never return them. There's nowhere for a night owl to shop at a grocery store near me anymore. Used to have a 24-hour grocery, now they close at 10th or something. I feel like the Targets of the world realized people were still shopping there even with lower standards because of their reputation. So why go back to the pre-pandemic standards, which in turn makes everyone else's standards go down? The whole thing is just a feedback loop of decay. Story 2. A lot of smaller businesses completely died because of it. The year before, I considered opening a little pizza restaurant and venue bar. I did a lot of work selling pizzas and putting on shows as events in other venues. I asked around, should I open my pizza place or buy a home? Everyone said to buy a home, so my wife and I did, but I was a little disappointed, having not started my pizza restaurant. Then COVID hit, ended up being a godsend. So lucky, rest of my life would have been ruined. Story 3. My sense of purpose or meaning. I haven't felt this nihilistic since I was a brooding teenage girl, 20 years later, and now it's actually more of an existential hell. This is in relation to actual virus politics societal response. People are just mean. Most people have careers and work at companies that, if either disappeared tomorrow, the only suffering would be from the employees without salaries anymore. Oh yeah, this one is me. I used to actually care about work and I don't know things. I can't get back to thinking about any of these matters. I care about money because my family needs it to live, but I am totally numb to anything I'm doing, achievements, long-term goals. Story 4. I feel like the stuff I do for money has come to feel so f***ing meaningless. I press buttons and guide other people on pressing those buttons so some other people can print packaging. Everything so big a business needs 25 other businesses to survive. We've created millions of problems to sell made-up solutions. The world certainly feels more corporatized than before. Everything you do, everywhere you go is some big corporation trying to sell you one or more things. A lot of which you don't really need but will feel like you need, or at least should have, by the time they're done with you. And as for the people that work in those corporations, they increasingly see the mindlessness of what they're doing, because we're all starting to realize how much bullshit is being sold to the world that isn't needed. The vast majority of us are just cogs in some corporate machine that is increasingly becoming more and more designed for the sole purpose of chewing people up, digesting their money, and spitting everything else out. Story 5. Mental health. I get services from a free clinic, but they're absolutely overworked. One of my previous therapists was dealing with like 70 patients. I have no idea how she lasted as long as she did. I work in mental health, with adolescents specifically. This is 100% the case. The longest we've had an open bed during the day is around 2 hours. And the only reason we've made it through a couple nights without filling an open bed is because it's 3 a.m. in the morning and the clinician in the psychiatric emergency department is busy sending patients to other floors. Story 6. Trust in the government. It wasn't 100% before by any means, but it certainly took a nosedive during and after COVID. I heard someone theorize that happened because most governments broke the unwritten social contract. Everyone made sacrifices during COVID. At the very least, it was staying home and socially distancing. At the more extreme end, it was stuff like having weddings canceled or not being able to attend a loved one's funeral. When the pandemic restrictions started getting lifted, people were hoping for something positive. Instead, what they got was price rises, diminished services, and in a lot of places, housing shortages. And even some of the positives that came out of COVID, such as working from home, are being slowly taken away. Not surprisingly, a lot of people think they're being punished for making the sacrifices they did. Story 7. Healthcare. The industry and the people in it who saw a lot of preventable dying and sickness are broken. It's not the same as it was before, and it probably won't ever be. This is what hardly ever gets mentioned. I know several in the field who have left, including me, because the burnout was so strong. It doesn't help that most people now only focus on or discuss how they missed the lockdown and how nice it was to be home, less traffic, etc. People in frontline jobs, especially healthcare. were in it every day hoping before the vaccine that they wouldn't get sick and die, or their families because of them. All while watching the reality of it play out before them, being responsible for helping those afflicted, while being bombarded with, well, it's actually unlikely, not as bad as they say, etc. Abuse and non-stop spewing of politics. Lack of help with staffing, some people got no pay raises, all while prices of everything skyrocketed. Also, no unemployment for us. We had plenty of access to work. I hope I never have to go back. Story 8. People's ability to behave properly in public. I had to ask 10 times as many people to be quiet at concerts post-pandemic than ever before. The other day, I was sitting at the bar in a Buffalo Wild Wings eating lunch. 2 other people there. This guy comes in, sits at the bar next to me, pulls his phone out, and starts watching a show with the volume on full blast. Zero shame. I asked him to turn it down, not even off, and he gave me the nastiest look before leaving in a huff. Story 9. The education and future of every kid born between 2006 to 2010. Ask any teacher. It's a lost generation. They're years behind if even still in school. My wife collects behavior data for K-5, and the kids who started kindergarten during the pandemic are miles and miles worse behaviorally than their peers above and below. This trend has maintained since COVID. As a teacher, it's every single kid who was a kindergartner through 11th grader in March of 2020. Our principal was showing us end-of-year test scores yesterday, and our academically high classes of today are the average classes pre-COVID. It's unbelievable. Story 10. The education and social conditioning of those currently in first and second year of university. I have family working at 2 different places, and they tell me that these kids do not know many of the basics they are expected to know in order to enter their programs. And they have basically no understanding of the way they are supposed to behave in class. It's like you took a bunch of people who only ever watch movies at home on the TV and had them go to a large screen theater. They talk, interrupt, eat an endless variety of noisy food, except loudly ringing cell phones, etc. The contrast with pre-pandemic students is striking. I'll probably get downvoted, but as someone responsible for hiring recent grads both pre- and post-pandemic, the decline started well before the pandemic. Story 11. Communication. The shutdown caused us to lean heavily on new, less efficient communication methods to get by, and now that we're back, people haven't stopped leaning on them. We have Zoom meetings with people in the same building as us, instead of walking 20 feet to their office. We block off hours for meetings that should be a sentence just to hang out on video calls. People will Gchat, Gmail instant message, me to set up a Zoom meeting with our cameras off for a single question, aka a phone call with extra steps. Everything is a meeting now. People end up missing one meeting because they're double booked in a second meeting while running late for a third. Meanwhile, not one of them needed to be a meeting. Everyone also expects immediate response from everyone at any time of day, while also somehow being entirely unavailable themselves. That's interesting. So I work in a mission-crucial government office that never closed down. People don't operate that way here. We whiteboard and have meetings in person, walk over to each other's desks unprompted, etc. I think the delineation is if you have everyone in the office or not. When everyone is in the office, you don't do this shit. But if people are constantly working remote while others are in the office and you want to loop everyone in, you have to Zoom, etc. My line in the sand with jobs is I will come into the office only on days where people are either there, out on vacation, or out sick. I don't see the point of some people being in an office and others not, because the WFH folks make it cumbersome for everyone else. Happy with hybrid offices, so long as it's everyone is in the office on the days where anyone is in the office vibes. Story 12. This is the big one. My wonderfully intelligent bosses decided to go from, we have the offices if needed, but you can work from home, to we'd like everyone to be in office Tuesdays and Wednesdays. In-person meetings foster communication much better, and FaceTime helps us connect to our coworkers. We have like 6 scattered offices around the country. There's not a single case where everyone on the team is in the same building reliably. So now we still have a few people calling in individually from the satellite offices, but then 4-8 people all in one main office room who decided that only one person needs to log on. So now, I have to start the meeting with a roll call like it's kindergarten, because I can't easily see who's sitting in the room. The people in the room are all different distances from the microphone, and usually don't bother speaking toward the mic. So I'm constantly having to fiddle with my volume to hear some people but not be deafened by others. The constantly open mic means that we hear every closing door, lawnmower, cough, side conversation, and anything else going on in the background. Because we don't have the luxury of muting 5 out of 6 people in that room. It just sucks across the board. Give me all or nothing, and I'd be happy. But this weird hybrid in-person but still scattered and remote calling setup is just straight bullshit. Story 13. Socializing in general. My mother complains nearly every day that besides her, one more person is in the office. Everyone else is in home office. I personally feel like I forgot how to socialize. And people in general get more disrespectful and rude. Existing in this world is exhausting. The internet and social media is turning humans into a less social species in general. I think it's about more than socializing. Working from home made people realize they could have a better home life and work balance. No time wasted on commute. No gas or maintenance costs. Lunch can be hot and home cooked. You actually get to see your baby in between meetings. You can hold your sleeping 2-month-old while you read last quarter's reports. For the general office job, I think a lot of people realized how broken our system is for the working class. Working from home was great for some people, and for some people it really wasn't. Maybe they didn't have the space or the quiet, or they really liked leaving their home every day. Whatever. I'm not saying socializing didn't take a hit, but I really think a big part of why working from home became what it is because people realized that life could be better. Story 14. I think it really f***ed things up the most for young kids like high school and college age kids, maybe right out of college. These kids were at a peak point in their socialization in new chapters of life, and they got robbed. I was 34 when the pandemic hit. I'd had a million nights out with friends. I was kind of exhausted from it all. The first year of the pandemic felt like a nice break from my life, almost like I was just in a cocoon in my apt catching up on lost sleep from the last decade and a half. But for a lot of folks who were younger, it just made life pass them by in a very turning point in their lives, and I'm not sure if they will ever be the same. I think the sacrifice for young folks was too much, and I think it may have been a miscalculation. Story 15. The social contract. For example, just being decent to one another. That's been on decline, but post-pandemic, it has not recovered. Things such as respecting public spaces or others are gone for the most part. Feels like no one cares anymore and selfishness rules. The social contract is absolutely broken. COVID gave every single person the ability to play Russian roulette with other people's lives, which was an unprecedented amount of power for most people. And let's say only 25% of the population didn't handle it well. My personal opinion is that's dramatically low, but there's no actual statistics. That 25% had Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, and more to broadcast how little they cared about other people. That 25% took refuge in each other in public, because they weren't the only ones without a mask, not washing their hands, or not getting vaccinated. Hell, the president of the country wasn't doing most of the basics to protect himself. So there was nothing to stop them from broadcasting their shitty opinions and acting out like toddlers in public. There's only so much of that nonsense the other 75% can tolerate when undergoing extreme stress like a pandemic that is killing their loved ones. Add on supply chain problems that take away access to basics like toilet paper and to comforts that help them cope. It's way too fucking much for the average person. So they don't have the energy to kill others with kindness, and not enough people are showing them kindness. So what's the point? Might as well save that energy and time instead of waste it on. There's no social contract anymore. God is dead, declared Nietzsche. Human decency suffered a fatal blow by COVID. All right, folks, that's a wrap. If you like more of this, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your thoughts in the comment below. I'll see you in the next video.